Hello, YNABers. My name is Jesse Meekum, and this is podcast number 475 for YNAB, where we teach you 4 rules to help you stop from paycheck to paycheck, get out of debt, and save more money. One of the biggest purchases you'll make is your house, and one of the next big purchases you'll make is multiple cars. And the YNAB team was asked, what topics should I cover in the podcast? And one of the popular requests was tips on buying a car. And I do not have any tips on buying a car, but it did get the old gears turning. You see what I did there? I am good for a pun now and again, or gears grinding, maybe. I haven't purchased a lot of cars, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I actually became an expert. There was one moment back in 2006 where Julie and I purchased 3 cars in 2 weeks. Because of a car accident, 2 car accidents, basically. Anyway, long story, don't need to go into it here. I'm not an expert on buying cars. As a matter of fact, I may be one of the worst people you could possibly ask as it relates to car purchasing. Here's something. I would never borrow money to purchase a car, but if I was stuck with zero transportation, I would borrow money to purchase a car. I would just eke by with the junkiest thing I could possibly eke by with. And I've actually done that for many years. But the idea now of optimizing around the purchase of a vehicle, it just doesn't get me that excited. And so that's really the topic of today's podcast, is really a question of what you're optimizing for. I just chatted with Sarah. She works here at YNAB, wonderful person. And we were talking about painting your kitchen cabinets because someone else on the team is thinking about painting her kitchen cabinets. And someone else on the team said he would never, ever do it himself again. Sarah was saying she would. What's Sarah optimizing for? Maybe saving $1, not her sanity. She might have perhaps mentioned. Cabinet painting is tough, but she's optimizing for not having to pay someone $5,000 to paint your cabinets. Fair enough. What are we optimizing for when we grab a bite to eat? What are we optimizing for when we go out to a nice fancy restaurant, or go to Little Caesars, or go to sushi, or get DoorDash? What are we optimizing for when we just open the fridge and grab whatever's in there? What are you optimizing for when you're purchasing a home? Is it the distance of the commute? Is it the size of the home? Is it the chance that you might have for a home office? That's becoming kind of popular. There are always things that you're optimizing for, and transportation is one of those things. And so that's why I feel supremely unqualified to be able to speak to car buying tips. I don't know. I just don't know what to do about that. The last time I purchased a vehicle was in 2015, and I leased it. And I didn't want to have, it was a Tesla Model S. I didn't want to commit to it, so I leased it. Paid through the nose for it. 3 years later, turned the car in, because when you lease, it's the most expensive way to possibly drive around, with the exception of maybe just Ubering everywhere. And that's arguable, I would say, at least in my case. So then, end of that lease, what do I do in 2018? I lease another one. It's basically the same model, different color. What am I optimizing for there? Dollars? My word, no. Good grief, no. No, not at all. I am optimizing for the car in my life to be as little headache as possible. And that's that. And if you would have asked me back in 2006, when I'd purchased 3 other vehicles, got smoking deals on them, I'd like to think, if you would have asked me, hey, do you think in 15 years, or whatever that was, my math's bad, do you think in 8 years you will lease a vehicle that's far too fancy and just basically flush money down the toilet? I would have said, you are absolutely crazy. But over the years, I've just optimized for different things. And examine yourself maybe 10 years ago. Don't try and think about the future so much, but think about the past you and ask yourself what you optimized for 10 years ago. And then ask yourself what you optimized for now. And I'll be honest, it's totally changed for me. And maybe it's changed for you. And maybe that's what ties us into the 2 weeks ago podcast around, or was it a week ago? The podcast where we talked about the ideal budget. that ideal budget is maybe built some around what you optimize for, what you're looking for, what kind of value are you trying to derive. I just don't want to deal with even the smallest of headaches with a car. And 90% of the people listening to this podcast right now are like, man, you're crazy. Yeah, okay, that's fine. That's fine. And there are other things that you would optimize for that I would say, man, you're crazy, And I think that's all okay. Now, there are probably conditions where, there are definitely conditions where if I were trying to pay off my credit cards, if I were trying to bump up my retirement savings, and someone came to me and said, hey, what about doing this? What about optimizing for basically ease of transportation above all else? Now, there's no way I would do it. But along the way, I've optimized for different things. I optimized for not going into debt for school. That led me to start YNAB. I optimized for time with my family. That helped me quit my first job. I optimized for balanced work life in the sense that I can have dinner with my kids virtually every night. I've optimized for 4 seasons because I love that. I've optimized for less car headache, and that's that. And there are probably 1,000 other things that you and I optimize for. How many more times am I going to say optimize? I don't know. I did not optimize for that, but they're just all these things that essentially I think I'm talking about values now, where you're kind of saying, where are your priorities? What are the jobs that your dollars are supposed to do? And crazy as it sounds, looking back now, 11 years from when I did the second lease, would I have ever believed that I would choose to drive in a crazy expensive way? No, absolutely not. But here I am, and lo and behold, I feel pretty at peace with it. We'll see what I do because the lease ends this year. And maybe it's time to ask myself if there's anything else I'd like to optimize for in lieu of that. I don't know. We'll see. Let the budget be yours, people. And here's your podcast on car buying tips. Didn't do that one very well. Until next time, follow YNAB's 4 rules, and you will win financially. You've never budgeted like this.